Hello everyone and welcome back to another WoT review. This time we are having a look at the FCM 50T Liberté on World of Tanks Console Edition. So this tank is basically the FCM 50T. It is identical to it in every way except for the somewhat wacky paint job. Especially those wheels, oh my gosh. And this tank's available, it's coming on available today, 8th of July up until the 14th on its own. You can get that in the store for 7,400 gold. It's also available as part of the bundle. It's been on sale for a little while. Some of you might already have bought that. And it's not too bad a tank at all. It's a very strange one. It's a tier 8 heavy tank. I'm not really sure why it's a heavy tank because there's not really, I mean it is by definition heavy I suppose, but it is also by definition incredibly easy to damage. It's got very weak armor that's hardly going to bounce anything. I think on average it bounced about 300 damage per game, so not really very much. And it's a bit of a weird one. So if you're not familiar with the WoT Can Earn series, what I'm doing is I play 25 games in a particular premium tank. I track all my battle results across those games, and then we watch back some of the gameplay like this, and we talk through the pros and cons, and also look at some of the more interesting parts of that data. So here we are, we've come over here. I'm just smashing out some of the walls so I can get a line of sight, see what's going on, and then just backing off so I'm not completely out in the open and exposed. Because like I said, this thing has pretty bad armor, but as you can tell there, it's got quite a nice gun. It's pretty accurate. It doesn't have the biggest alpha damage, but it's got a pretty nice pen. I think it's about 211 pen, something like that, 212. We'll just double check that. Yeah, it's got 212 pen, so it's pretty solid. And it really needs a good gun to make up for that terrible armor. One of the other great things about this tank is its mobility. It's very, very fast for a heavy tank, and it's got a nice amount of hit points, to be fair. Especially if you consider it to be more of a medium tank, which really it is, aside from the fact that it's absolutely massive. But that massive size of it also makes it pretty good at ramming. Even though it doesn't have very good armor, it's not a bad ramming machine thanks to the weight and the speed. So thanks to this heavy tank of ours pushing across there, I've actually realised I can make a dash across the road here and get amongst these hills here and hopefully get some side shots and start to bully some of these guys. I didn't want to get stuck up on the rails there, just camping and sniping. So we decided to get stuck in, and this is one of the, I think this is the top silver earning game of the whole bunch, of the 25 games, so it ends up being a pretty good little earner. Now I found the silver earning potential of this one was a bit strange really, because it has quite a low sort of DPM, a low alpha damage, and even though the pen is good, so you don't have to load premium ammo too often, which helps save you money. It doesn't really pack enough of a punch to generate huge amounts of silver. It also struggles compared to, I found some of the best silver earners so far were really ones that had a bit of armor to them that could sit there and sort of duke it out with people. So stuff like the Tiger 88 or the KV5. Things that could sit there and just hammer it out. If they're top tier, they can go around and shoot everyone and barely get touched. Whereas something like this with kind of weak armor, even if you're top tier, you're going to get penned just as regularly as if you're bottom tier, because the tier 6s are probably going to pen you about as easily as the tier 8s and 9s are going to pen you, which can be a little bit of a pain. So here we are, we're pushing in on this T-34. We've been trying to dodge his gun because he's got a bloody big one and we don't want to get shot by it. And there we go, managed to damage ammo pretty nicely. We're letting our poor mate in our T-32 take some of the heat for us. So yeah, if we compare the DPM of the 50T is just over 2,000 DPM compared to the Tiger 88, which has 2,800 nearly. This is without any equipment and that sort of thing. It's pretty substantial difference. I find the Tiger 88, I could have a game that would be over in a couple of minutes, if I just find one person that I drive up to, sit there and shoot them constantly for 30 seconds and do 1500 damage or whatever, and then get killed by someone, I still make quite a nice amount of silver. You can't really do this in this thing because it doesn't put out the damage quick enough. It's the nice little suicide ram by the T-34 there helped me out. Otherwise, I probably would have eaten a rather big shell from him. So that DPM really hurts the silver earning potential of this tank. It is actually the lowest average silver earner of any of the tier 8 premiums that I tested. That said, it was a good fun tank to drive. It is good. I did have one particularly crazy round that I won't be showing today because it was so good that it's going to be shown on its own merits, really, in its own video. And that was a pools medal game. That's right, I had a 10 kill pools medal game in this tank whilst I was churning out the 25 games for this series. It's only the second pools medal I've ever had. The first one was on PlayStation at tier 6 quite recently. You might have seen the replay. In my VK36H. And now I've got one in the Liberté. So that round's going to go up on its own. I've included it in the stats for this series, but I'm not going to show the gameplay today because I don't want to spoil it. I think that'd be fun to show on its own and do a proper commentary on that game, rather than me just waffling on about the 50T over the top of it. So there we go, that's that one. There was one guy left to hunt down, which we swiftly did. We made 130k pretty much with premium account, 83k without, and 3.5k damage, a little bit assisted. So pretty solid round there. So like I was saying, this was actually the lowest of the tier 8 premiums I've tested so far for silver earning potential. Now keep in mind that silver earning, that varies depending on my skill in particular tanks and what suits my playstyle. This one I don't think does suit my playstyle very well because I play pretty aggressively. And I don't know, it's okay to play aggressively when you're in something like a T-44 or like a medium tank like that, that's quick and got a decent gun and is also kind of small. But when you're doing it in like a boat-like machine like this, it's absolutely huge. It's just so easy to get damaged. It's really hard to sort of dish out much damage without getting hit in return. So if you want to dish out damage without getting hit in return, you have to be a bit more campy, a bit more snipey, which I don't really enjoy doing. So arguably you could have made a bit more, being a bit more passive than I play, but it's always hard to really tell. But it was fun to use. I enjoyed using it more than the Freedom, even though the Freedom actually made more silver on average per game. This made only 57,000 silver per game with a premium account on average. Keep in mind this is with no ops. I don't use any ops when I'm doing these series, and all solo, so no platooning. So with ops you'd make a little bit more. But for comparison to that 57k with a premium account per game, the Freedom made about 65k per game. Jagdtiger 88 made almost 80k. And the KV5, which was the highest so far, made 80,000 silver per game. And I think that goes to show that a lot of the time you can make more silver from these tanks that can just sit there and just duke it out with people, especially for those games when you're top tier. It really helps you take advantage of that if your enemies just can't touch you. And being top tier in a Jagdtiger 88 or a KV5, you can really dish out a serious amount of pain. I found there were less of those big games I had in this, but then I'm kind of less skilled in this tank than I am in certainly the Jag 88. I've used a whole ton. But those tanks, those armoured tanks, you don't really get into this sort of situation where there's nothing you can do. So we've got an IS-3 here down a long corridor and a little VK36H, and there's nothing I can do to this IS-3. I mean, I can pen him, but he's already got one big hit on me. I have to aim for his weak spots to be able to pen him, and he can basically hit me anywhere on my tank to do a huge amount of damage. So there's not really any way I can drive down here and survive. He managed to get another hit on me there. I show a bit too much, unfortunately. So I decide I'm just going to put some shots into him, and then we're going to come up with another plan, because this really isn't going to work. So if you're curious what equipment I'm running here, I've got a gun rammer, I've got a gun laying drive, and I've got vert stabilizers. Arguably you might want to throw vents or optics on there, which both of those would be quite nice, but I kind of like the gun focus setup because you really need to take advantage of sort of peekaboo and shooting people without sitting out in the open and taking shots. So I think those three are a pretty good setup. So here we go, using the mobility of the Liberté to our advantage and running the hell away. Which actually turns out to be a pretty wise move in this battle. And that IS-3 ends up being the last guy left alive on the enemy team, as you'll see later on. So we can see the quality of the gun coming into play here. It's nice and accurate, aims in fairly quickly. The reload's not terrible, but with that alpha damage, it's not really that great. But it is able to sit here with that nice pen and take advantage of that. So assisted damage wise, it did okay. It had only really had one big assist game, which is the last one I'm going to show you in a minute. And then on average it was quite low. The average was about 405 assisted damage per game, which isn't a huge amount. Average damage per game was about 1650, which again is fairly low compared to something like the YAG-88 that did about 2200 damage per game. It's quite a lot less. And base XP wise did about 834 per game, which is pretty similar to what the Cromwell Knight managed. So it's not bad as a little crew trainer. For French tanks, you're pretty limited on what you can get for crew training, so it's not a bad shout. You know, if you've got a lot of crew training you need to do for your French tanks, then you're probably going to want to pick up the 50T or the Liberté, or both if you're crazy. Or if you're a die-hard tank collector, of course. But there we go, I was waiting there till the IS-3 came up behind me. He has now come up behind me, so I've dived off, albeit just surviving his shot. Well, we've actually managed to put out quite a nice amount of damage after coming around here. We've got a load of nice side shots, and we've really taken advantage of that lovely vantage spot we had in the middle there. And there we go, this guy goes down, and the enemy team has pretty much been wiped out. There we go, grab a nice little kill there for kill number 3. I found this didn't get a huge amount of kills. We did 30 kills over 25 games, which doesn't sound too bad, but keep in mind 10 of those kills came in one game. If it wasn't for that Paul's medal, if that had just been a one killer, it would have only been, what, 21 kills, would have been less than 1 kill per game. So yeah, it wasn't the best performing vehicle. But like I said, it was actually pretty fun to use. Not crazy fun, not like Type 59 fun maybe, or something like that, but it was good fun. Especially compared to the Freedom. Even though the Freedom made quite a lot more silver than it, the Freedom I just found very frustrating because it's so slow. So here we go, duking out with this Tiger 2, trying to wait for him to shoot and then back up. He's now showing me the side of his turret very kindly, so we're going to aim in on that. And unfortunately we're going to miss. So wait for a reload to see what we can do. But we got 14 damage in ribbons, so it's a pretty nice amount of damage. There we go. We don't need the side of his turret. We'll just throw one through the front of it. And then try and aim in another shot, whilst a nice little 87 decides to just drive into the side of me. I have no idea what he was trying to do. I'm not sure where he was trying to go. I'm not sure even he was sure what he was doing either. But there we go, we got down to the IS-3. It took quite a while for us all to drive around and dig him out and finish him off, but it wasn't terribly exciting, so I thought I'd spin on and would keep things nice and short. So there we go, 100k silver, 3,500 damage again. Pretty healthy amount. So here we are on to game number 3. This is one of the other higher earning games I had. This was kind of near the end of my run. I think this was the highest combined round I had. Yes, it was the highest combined damage and assist round we had as well. So nice little one to bring you. One of the higher base XP games. And we're top tier. I didn't think this thing got hugely affected by being bottom tier. Keep in mind it gets preferential matchmaking as well, so only sees up to tier 9 anyway. But it didn't suffer hugely. I mean, you wouldn't want to sit there and duke it out with an E75, but since everything can pen you no matter what tier it is anyway, pretty much, doesn't really matter if it's tier 9 or if it's tier 7 or if it's tier 8. Your gun's fairly decent and can pen those guys back fairly well, so I didn't find it made a huge difference to my overall performance and scores, whether I was in a tier 9 or a tier 8 game. So what I was going for here, since we were top tier, was to get to this nice strong position, which really helps spot out the enemies, your team, on Malinovka Assault when you're attacking. It's a great little spot, and I've got my mate in the light tank here with me as well. So just waiting to see if this guy shows himself a little bit. He's been a little bit cautious. There we go. This guy's not being cautious though, so we put one into him and back off so we don't eat a nice big IS-3 shell, because we saw what those would do to us last game. There we go, just aim in. There we go, very nice. So you can see the gun depression is actually pretty solid on this vehicle as well. Does the job pretty nicely. I think it's got 8 degrees of gun depression, so not too bad, not too shabby. Just waiting for a shot on this guy. There we go, second time lucky, and that opens up a nice little side to rear shot on this guy across the way. So there we go, this guy getting hammered nicely. I think most of the red team are actually now back on the hill in a pretty passive position. And that generally means that they're going to get wrecked. The team that sort of sits back and camps is normally the team that gets destroyed, because they get surrounded and they just get picked apart. And that's pretty much what's going to happen. I've decided at this stage I want to push forward a little bit. I want to get some spots. I know that I'm going to probably eat some hits doing this. Ugh, that was awful there. That was very unlucky. But I wanted to get up here and just start spotting people out on this ridge a little bit, try and get some more assisted damage. Spotting damage always a nice way to get some silver, because it costs you nothing unless it's tracking assisted. But if it's spotting assisted, it's free money, right? You don't have to spend a shell to shoot anyone. Free money. So just waiting and seeing what's going to evolve. There we go, waiting for some more shots on these guys. Put one into him. You can see that pretty low amount of alpha damage. It's not too great, really. I mean, this reminds me of driving like my Tiger 1, really, or even the fully spec'd out VK36H, I'm sure, was putting out not too much less damage than this. So it can be a bit frustrating at times. There we go. Looks like they've all fallen back from that ridge, haven't eaten quite a lot of shots. So we're going to push in. We got a load of health left. We can't bounce much, but at least we've got the hit points to absorb some shots. So we're going to dive in and eat up as much assisted and a little bit of damage as we can. So if we look at how much this thing actually earned over time, we track the length of the battle for this series. We basically tracked as the time you spend from the start of the game up until the point that you die, plus 60 seconds for sort of loading in and stuff. And that's kind of done, I do it like that rather than to the end of the battle, because kind of assuming that if you're grinding out silver that you're going to have a couple of tanks, and once you've been killed in this one, then you'll jump out and jump in a different tank. So you don't have that sort of dead time waiting for the battle to end. So length of battle wise, we were looking at, what did we get for this? We're an average 369 seconds, so what's that, about 6 minutes long. That's with the extra 60 seconds. I guess we compare that to some of the other vehicles. That's going to be pretty similar, I think. Yeah, it's about the same as the Tiger 88. I think that's really focused more on the tiers that you're playing at rather than the tank you're going to be in. But what is interesting about the length of the battle is that we can then look at your silver earned per hour, per minute, per second, this kind of thing. So the silver earned per hour for this vehicle was 591,000 silver per hour. It's about 600k per hour of actual being alive gameplay. So not too bad. That's only about 50k less than some of the other tier 8 premiums. They were mostly up in the sort of 650 to 700k range. It's not hugely less. It's certainly more than the tier 7s and the tier 6s that we've tested. And it made 1.43 million silver over those 25 battles in total. So it did make a nice chunk of silver. That's with a premium account. Without a premium account, would have made about 800,000. So not too shabby, but again, for comparison, the Tiger 88 did pretty much 2 million silver. So made an extra 550,000 over 25 games driving the Tiger 88 compared to this. So I think you can pretty definitively say that the Tiger 88 is a better silver earner than this tank. But like I said, there's other aspects to owning premium tanks, whether you're a collector or whether you're a crew trainer. This thing certainly is probably more valuable as a crew trainer than the Jagdtiger 88 because there's plenty of German premium tanks, but there aren't too many French premium tanks. So there you go. I think that's about it for today. If you want to have a look at the full data, it's on the screen at the moment. Plus, I'll put a link down below to a Google document if you want to grab the actual numbers. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, feel free to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And you can come and check back in when I put that nice Pools medal game up from the Liberté. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to seeing that. Nice one. All right, well, thanks very much for watching. My name is Ben. We are the Bid Guys, and I'll see you next time.